I never planned to steal another woman's husband, but sometimes things just happen. At least that's what I tell myself. It started at work. My boss, Olivia, was the kind of woman who demanded respect the moment she walked into a room. Tall, elegant, always dressed like she had an important meeting with the president. She ran our office with an iron fist, and everyone, including me, was terrified of crossing her. But her husband, that was a different story. I first met Daniel at the company Christmas party. He was charming, confident, and nothing like Olivia. Where she was cold and calculating, he was warm, funny, and most importantly, interested in me. It started as harmless flirting, the kind of banter that could be brushed off as friendly. But the way his eyes lingered on me, the way he laughed a little too hard at my jokes, made it clear he wanted more. And so did I. At first, I told myself it was just for fun. We exchanged messages late at night, shared stolen glances in the office when Olivia wasn't looking. Then, one evening, after a long meeting, he asked if I wanted to grab a drink. I knew it was dangerous. I knew I should have said no. But I didn't. We ended up at a quiet bar, tucked away from the places our coworkers might see us. The drinks flowed, the conversation deepened, and soon his hand was on my thigh under the table. My heart pounded as he leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. "You drive me crazy, you know that?" he murmured. I should have left. I should have walked away before it went any further. But when his lips met mine, I didn't pull back. That night, we ended up in a hotel room. Clothes hit the floor within seconds. His hands were everywhere, his mouth tracing patterns on my skin. It was reckless, wild, and completely wrong, but I had never felt so alive. When it was over, we lay in silence, tangled in sheets that weren't ours. "What now?" I asked, my fingers trailing down his chest. Daniel exhaled, staring at the ceiling. "I don't know, but I don't want this to be the last time." And just like that, we set something in motion that neither of us could stop. I told myself I'd stop, that it was just a one-time thing, a reckless mistake, but that was a lie. Daniel and I couldn't keep away from each other. The stolen glances in the office turned into secret meetings in dark corners, brief moments where his hand would brush against mine, sending a thrill through my body. We were addicted to the risk, to the secrecy, to each other. The second time happened in his car. It was late, the office parking lot nearly empty. He had texted me, a simple "meet me outside." And like a fool, I went. The moment I slid into the passenger seat, his lips were on mine. Desperate, hungry. My body melted against him as his hands roamed freely. "I can't stop thinking about you," he murmured against my skin. "Then don't," I whispered back, my breath shaky. The windows fogged up as we gave in again, right there in his car, where anyone could have seen us. It was reckless, dangerous, but I didn't care. The more we did it, the sloppier we became. We stopped being careful. The thrill of almost getting caught only made it more exciting. We found time anywhere. An empty conference room, a business trip that we both suddenly had to attend, even inside Olivia's own house when she was away for the weekend. It wasn't just sex, it was an obsession. But obsessions come with consequences. One night, after another meeting that lasted longer than it should have, I got home to find an envelope slipped under my apartment door. My name was scrawled across it in sharp, angry letters. Inside was a single photograph. A picture of Daniel and me, his hand on my lower back, lips barely an inch from mine. And below it a note, "I know." Panic gripped my chest as I stared at the photograph. My hands trembled while holding the glossy paper, the image burning into my mind. Someone had seen us. Someone had been watching. I looked around my apartment as if the walls themselves were closing in on me. Who sent this? Was it Olivia? A coworker? Someone I hadn't even considered? My heart pounded as I picked up my phone and dialed Daniel's number. He answered on the first ring. "Hey, I was just..." "Someone knows," I interrupted, my voice barely above a whisper. "They left a picture of us at my door." There was silence on the other end, a long, suffocating pause. Then, "I'm coming over." 20 minutes later, Daniel was at my door. He was breathless, his shirt slightly wrinkled as if he had thrown it on in a rush. The moment he stepped inside, he grabbed the photograph from my hand. His jaw tightened as he scanned the note beneath it. "This is bad," he muttered, running a hand through his hair. "Really bad." No kidding, I snapped. What do we do if Olivia finds out? She won't. His voice was firm, but there was uncertainty in his eyes. We just have to figure out who sent this. I paced the room, my mind racing. It could be someone from the office, or one of Olivia's friends. Daniel exhaled sharply, rubbing his temples. We need to be careful. No more public meetings, no more risks. I scoffed. You mean like the risks we've already been taking? He shot me a look. I'm serious. If Olivia gets suspicious, we're done. The weight of his words settled over me like a heavy blanket. This was no longer just a game. Someone had evidence, and that meant we were no longer in control. That night, I barely slept. Every noise outside made me jump. Every shadow in my apartment felt like a threat. The next morning at work, I walked in with my head down, trying not to meet anyone's gaze. But then, as I reached my desk, I saw it. Another envelope, another note. Lies don't stay hidden forever. My breath caught in my throat. My hands shook as I opened the envelope, fearing what I would find next. Inside, there was no photograph this time. Just those words, written in a careful, deliberate script. I glanced around the office. Who could it be? Who knew? Then my blood ran cold. Across the room, Olivia was watching me. She knew. I couldn't move. My body locked in place as Olivia's piercing gaze bore into me. My mind raced, trying to figure out if she truly knew everything or if this was some cruel coincidence. But the look in her eyes said it all. She knew. I forced myself to breathe, to act normal. I swallowed hard and turned my attention to my computer screen, pretending to check my emails, but I could still feel her watching me. My hands trembled as I reached for my coffee, the cup nearly slipping from my grasp. A notification popped up on my screen. An email, no subject, no sender name, just one line of text. We should talk, conference room, now. I knew who it was from before I even glanced in Olivia's direction. She was already rising from her chair, her movements precise, calculated. Without another glance, she walked toward the hallway leading to the conference rooms. Every part of me screamed to run, to call Daniel, to make an excuse and leave the office for the day. But I couldn't. If I ran now, I was as good as guilty. With legs that felt like lead, I pushed myself up and followed her. The hallway felt longer than usual, the fluorescent lights buzzing above me like a warning siren. When I finally stepped into the conference room, Olivia was standing by the window, her arms crossed. The door clicked shut behind me. How long? Her voice was even, but there was a sharpness beneath it. I hesitated. Olivia, Don't lie to me, don't insult me like that. She turned, her gaze burning into mine. How long have you been screwing my husband? My stomach lurched. There was no pretending now. No smooth words or carefully crafted lies could get me out of this. A few months, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. Olivia let out a short, humorless laugh. A few months, and you thought I wouldn't find out? You thought I was that stupid? I opened my mouth to speak, but she held up a hand, stopping me. I want you to listen very carefully, she said, stepping closer. You have no idea who you're dealing with. I could destroy you. And believe me, I will if you don't do exactly what I say. My throat went dry. What do you want? A slow, calculating smile spread across her lips. You're going to break it off, today, and then you're going to quit. I don't want to see your face in this office ever again. I sucked in a sharp breath. Olivia, please. Did I stutter? She snapped. I am giving you an option you don't deserve. If you don't take it, I will ruin your life. Daniel won't protect you. He's weak. He always has been. But me, I will make sure you regret every single moment of this. Silence stretched between us. I felt my entire world closing in around me. I should have seen this coming. I should have known I wouldn't get away with it. With a deep breath, I forced myself to nod. Okay. Olivia studied me for a long moment, then nodded in satisfaction. Good girl, now get out of my sight. I turned and walked out of the conference room, my pulse pounding in my ears. But as I stepped back into the office, one thought burned in my mind. This wasn't over. I left the conference room in a daze, Olivia's words echoing in my mind. Quit my job, cut ties with Daniel, just walk away like nothing happened? I should have. I knew it was the only logical option. but logic had stopped guiding me the moment I let Daniel put his hands on me. Instead of packing up my things, I went to him. He was in his office, standing by the window, staring at his phone like he was waiting for bad news. "She knows," I said, closing the door behind me. Daniel exhaled slowly. "I figured. She wants me gone. She wants us over." He turned to me then, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. "What did you say?" I hesitated, then shook my head. I didn't agree to anything. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "This is bad. You don't understand what she's capable of. If she wants to ruin you, she will. She has power." I crossed my arms. "So what? We just let her control everything, let her dictate our lives." Daniel stopped pacing. He looked at me like I had just suggested something absurd. "This isn't a game. If Olivia wants revenge, she won't stop until you're left with nothing. She won't just make sure you lose this job, she'll make sure you can't get another. She'll make sure people know your name for all the wrong reasons." The weight of his words settled over me like a suffocating blanket. "What about you?" I asked. "She won't come after you." His silence was my answer. "She's done this before, hasn't she?" I whispered. Daniel swallowed hard. "Not like this, but I've seen what she does to people who cross her." My mind raced. I had spent the last few months feeling invincible, thinking I could have whatever I wanted without consequences. But now, standing here, watching the fear in Daniel's eyes, I realized just how badly I had underestimated Olivia. "We need a plan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Daniel sighed. "There's no plan that ends well for us." But I wasn't ready to accept that, not yet. Because I wasn't done playing this game. I had underestimated Olivia, but I wasn't about to let her win. If she wanted to destroy me, I'd make sure she regretted it just as much as I did. The next few days were suffocating. Every time I walked into the office, I felt eyes on me. Some were curious, others pitied me, but the worst ones belonged to Olivia. She was always watching, waiting for me to crack. Daniel was distant. We stopped meeting in secret, stopped texting. He was pulling away, but I refused to let him run. If he thought he could escape this unscathed, he was as delusional as I had been. One evening, after another exhausting day of pretending everything was fine, I found an email waiting for me in my inbox. No sender, no subject, just one line of text. "You're not as smart as you think you are." A chill ran down my spine. Was it Olivia? Someone else? How many people knew? I grabbed my coat and left work early, needing air, needing space. But the second I stepped out of the building, my heart stopped. A black car was parked across the street. The driver's window was down, and a man in sunglasses was watching me. I turned away quickly, walking fast, trying to convince myself it was just paranoia. But when I reached my apartment, another envelope was waiting for me. This time, it wasn't just a photo, it was a letter. "You thought you could play with fire and not get burned. You should have left when you had the chance." I dropped the letter, my hands shaking. Olivia wasn't just threatening me, she was warning me. Daniel called that night. "We need to talk, now." I met him at a hotel on the edge of the city. He looked worse than before, eyes dark, stress written all over his face. "She's not going to stop," he said before I could speak. "She's had people watching me too. She's making sure I stay in line." "So what do we do?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. His jaw clenched. "We run, we leave everything behind." I stared at him, searching his face for any sign that he was joking. But he was. Run, leave my job, my apartment, my life. It sounded insane. But so was staying. Running away sounded like the only option. The walls were closing in, and Olivia wasn't going to stop until she had completely destroyed me. But as I sat across from Daniel in that dimly lit hotel room, something inside me hesitated. "Where would we even go?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Daniel leaned forward, his fingers laced together. "Anywhere, somewhere she can't reach us. We can start over." I wanted to believe him. I wanted to run away and pretend none of this had ever happened. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. "She'll find us," I said. "She has resources, connections. She won't just let us disappear." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we make sure she has no reason to chase us." I shook my head, trying to process what he was suggesting. "You mean?" "We give her something she wants. A deal. He exhaled sharply, rubbing his temple. I've been thinking about this. There's one thing Olivia values more than revenge, her reputation. If we can convince her that going public with this will hurt her more than it'll hurt us, we might have a chance. The idea made my stomach churn. Olivia was ruthless, but she was also calculated. She wouldn't burn herself just to watch me fall. You think she'll listen? I asked. She'll have to. Daniel looked at me with a desperate kind of determination. But we have to act fast. If she thinks we're already planning to leave, she might escalate. I exhaled slowly, weighing the risks. There was no safe way out of this, but maybe, just maybe, there was a way to survive. The next morning, I sent Olivia a message. Short, direct. Let's talk, no games, no threats, just an agreement. Her reply came within minutes. Tomorrow, midnight, my office, alone. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding in my ears. This was it. The final move in a game I never should have played. And I wasn't sure if I was about to win or lose everything. The moment I stepped into Olivia's office, the air felt suffocating. The dim lighting cast sharp shadows on the sleek, modern furniture, making everything seem colder than it already was. Olivia sat behind her massive desk, her expression unreadable, her fingers tapping rhythmically against the polished wood. Close the door, she said, her voice like ice. I did as she asked, swallowing the lump in my throat. My heart pounded in my chest, but I forced myself to keep my posture straight. This was a battle, and I couldn't show weakness. You have 5 minutes, she said, leaning back in her chair. Say whatever it is you came here to say. I took a deep breath. I know you want to destroy me, and you have every reason to, but this doesn't have to get worse for either of us. A flicker of amusement crossed her face. You think you have anything to bargain with, after what you've done? I do, I said firmly. I know your reputation is everything to you. I know that if this affair gets out, you won't just be the betrayed wife. You'll be the woman whose husband chose an employee over her. People will talk, Olivia. They'll question why he strayed, and no matter how much power you have, whispers turn into headlines. She stiffened. That was the reaction I was waiting for. Olivia was ruthless, but she wasn't reckless. She knew I was right. What do you want? She finally asked, her voice quieter now, more measured. I walk away, I said. I leave the company, I disappear from both of your lives, and this never sees the light of day. You get to control the narrative. You get to be the one who moves on with grace. No scandal, no humiliation. She stared at me, and for the first time, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't rage. Calculation, perhaps, or the realization that revenge wasn't always the best option. Then, after what felt like an eternity, she nodded. Fine, you have 1 week. If I hear so much as a whisper about this anywhere, you'll regret ever stepping foot in this company. I exhaled, relief washing over me. You won't. She stood, signaling that the meeting was over. Get out, and don't ever think I'll forget this. I turned and walked out, my hands still shaking, my legs weak, but I had done it. I was free. Or at least, I thought I was. I spent the next few days waiting for the other shoe to drop. I had Olivia's word, but I didn't trust her. How could I? She wasn't the kind of woman who let things go easily. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart jumped, expecting another threat, another ultimatum. But nothing came, just silence. Daniel, on the other hand, wasn't handling things as well. He was restless, paranoid, constantly checking his phone like he expected Olivia to change her mind and ruin us both. Are you sure she's going to let this go? He asked one night as we sat in my apartment, lights dimmed, curtains drawn. He hadn't been home in days, afraid of what might be waiting for him if he walked through his own front door. She gave me a week, I reminded him. We just have to get through it, then we disappear. He let out a bitter laugh, running a hand through his hair. Disappear? You think it's that easy? Olivia doesn't forget. She might let you walk now, but do you really believe she won't come for you later? I didn't have an answer for that. I wanted to believe she would move on, that she'd see no point in chasing ghosts. But Daniel was right. She was the kind of woman who played the long game. And then, on the 6th day, it happened. A single email, no subject, no sender. You really thought it would be that simple. My blood ran cold. Before I could react, my phone rang. Daniel, his voice was frantic. Turn on the news, now." My hands trembled as I grabbed the remote, flicking to the first channel that came to mind. And there it was. Olivia, standing in front of cameras, her expression controlled, poised, every bit the image of the betrayed but dignified wife. "I have always valued honesty, integrity, and loyalty," she said, her voice measured. "Unfortunately, not everyone shares those values. My husband, Daniel, has betrayed me, but I will not let this define me. I will move forward, stronger, wiser." The headline at the bottom of the screen made my stomach drop. CEO's husband caught in shocking affair with employee. Daniel swore on the other end of the line. "She's ruining me. She's ruining both of us." I barely heard him. I was too busy watching Olivia's face, the satisfaction in her eyes as she delivered the final blow. She had let me think I was free. But she had been waiting for the perfect moment to strike. I turned off the TV, my hands shaking. The walls were closing in. Olivia hadn't just exposed us, she had made sure the world saw it through her lens. The cheated, dignified wife, the reckless, heartless mistress, the weak, pathetic husband. Every detail was crafted perfectly. She didn't just want revenge, she wanted destruction. Daniel was still on the phone, his voice distant, panicked. "We need to do something. We can't just sit here and let her control the story." But I barely listened. My thoughts were a blur, racing through every possible scenario. What could I say? That it wasn't true? That I was the victim? No one would believe me. Olivia had all the power. And now she had the sympathy too. By morning, my name was everywhere. Social media, news articles, even my personal email was flooded with messages, some from strangers hurling insults, others from people I once considered friends, now distancing themselves. My job sent an email, vague and impersonal, placing me on an indefinite leave of absence. We all knew what that meant. I had been erased. Daniel called again, but I didn't answer. What was the point? He was drowning just as much as I was, but unlike him, I didn't have the luxury of hiding behind wealth. He'd lay low for a while, and eventually the world would forgive him. I wouldn't get that chance. And then, just when I thought it couldn't get worse, my phone buzzed with a new message. No number, no name, just a single line of text. "You should have left when you had the chance." I stared at the screen, my stomach twisting into knots. Olivia wasn't done with me. She had destroyed my reputation, my career, and now she was coming for whatever was left. I had underestimated her before. I wouldn't make that mistake again. I packed a bag. I didn't know where I was going, only that I couldn't stay here. If Olivia wanted a war, I wasn't going to sit back and take it. I would fight. I just had to figure out how. I checked into a small motel just outside the city, paid in cash, and turned off my phone. I needed time to think, to figure out my next move. Olivia had taken everything from me, my job, my reputation, any semblance of normal life, but she had underestimated one thing. I wasn't going to just disappear. Daniel finally got through to me the next morning, his voice raw with frustration. "Where the hell are you?" "Somewhere safe," I said flatly. "Olivia, not done. She's pushing for legal action. Fraud, misconduct, anything she can use. She wants to make sure you never work again." I let out a bitter laugh. "She doesn't just want to ruin me, she wants me to suffer." "I can try to fix this," he said, desperation leaking into his voice. "Talk to her, make a deal." I closed my eyes, gripping the phone tighter. "She doesn't make deals, Daniel. She plays to win." There was silence. I could hear him breathing heavily, stress radiating through the line. Then he said something I wasn't expecting. "Come with me." My breath caught. "What?" "Leave with me, start over somewhere new. We can get away from all of this." It was insane, reckless. And yet, for a split second, I imagined it, running away, leaving Olivia's web of destruction behind. But reality hit just as fast. "She'll find us," I said. "And if she doesn't, she'll make sure we have nowhere to run." Another silence, then Daniel sighed. "Then what do we do? Just let her win." I stared out the dirty motel window, watching the cars pass on the highway. "No, we hit back. We find something on her, something she doesn't want the world to see. If she wants to burn me down, I'll make sure she goes down with me." Daniel hesitated. "You really think you can take her on?" I smiled, but there was no humor in it. "I don't have anything left to lose." I spent the next 2 days locked in that motel room, poring over everything I could find on Olivia. News articles, business reports, even old social media posts, anything that might give me an edge. If I was going to take her down, I needed something solid, something undeniable. Daniel was losing patience. "This is insane," he said over the phone. "She has lawyers, contacts, power. What do we have?" I ignored him, scrolling through pages of corporate filings. "She has secrets, Daniel. Everyone does. We just have to find them." Then I found it. A single discrepancy buried deep in a financial report from years ago. A company acquisition that didn't add up. Money moved to offshore accounts. The kind of thing that wouldn't make headlines on its own, but in the right hands, could ruin everything she had built. "Got her," I muttered, my heart pounding. Daniel hesitated. "And what exactly are you planning to do?" I smiled, the thrill of control rushing through me. "I'm going to make her an offer. Either she backs off, or I blow up her entire empire." It didn't take long to get her attention. The next morning, my phone buzzed. No caller ID. I answered without hesitation. "You have no idea what you're doing." Olivia's voice was calm, controlled, but I could hear it just beneath the surface. She was rattled. "Oh, I think I do," I said, letting the silence stretch. "I know about the money, Olivia. The offshore accounts, the fake acquisitions. You thought no one would dig deep enough, but here we are." A pause, then a slow exhale. "You want to play this game? Fine, but you better be prepared for what happens when you lose." I clenched my jaw. "I'm not going to lose. Here's the deal: you drop the smear campaign, leave me the hell alone, and I walk away. No police, no media, nothing. You get to keep your reputation. But if you come for me again, I bury you." Another long silence. Then, finally, a quiet chuckle. "You really think you have the upper hand? You have no idea how deep this goes. But fine, I'll consider your proposal. Just don't think this means we're done." The line went dead. My hands were still shaking as I put the phone down. "She's bluffing," Daniel said. "She's not going to back down that easily." I turned to him, my pulse still racing. "Then I guess we find out just how far she's willing to go." The silence after Olivia's call was suffocating. I had forced her into a corner, but she wasn't the kind of woman to accept defeat. She had agreed to consider my offer, but I knew better than to trust her. This wasn't over. Daniel paced the room, his hands buried in his hair. "This was a mistake. She's not just going to walk away." I stayed still, watching him unravel. "She doesn't have a choice. If she pushes me, I take her down." He stopped pacing, staring at me. "And what if she calls your bluff? What if she has something worse on you?" I hadn't let myself think about that. Olivia had power, but she wasn't invincible. If she had something, she would have used it already. "She doesn't," I said, more to convince myself than him. Daniel sat down, rubbing his face. "This isn't a game anymore. We're playing with real fire." "Then we don't stop," I said. "We make sure she knows we won't back down. If she wants a war, we'll give her one." The next morning, another message arrived. No number, no name, just a single sentence. "You don't know what you've started." I swallowed hard. Olivia wasn't bluffing. She was preparing her next move. By midday, Daniel got a call from his lawyer. His accounts were frozen pending an internal investigation. His company was under scrutiny. Olivia was already striking back. "She's trying to cut off my resources," he muttered, gripping the phone so tight his knuckles turned white. "She's making sure I have nothing." I clenched my fists. "Then we hit harder, we leak the documents." Daniel looked at me, hesitating. "Once we do this, there's no going back." I exhaled slowly. We crossed that line a long time ago. That night, I sent the files anonymously to a journalist known for exposing corporate corruption. Olivia would wake up to headlines that she couldn't control. I expected relief. Instead, I felt the weight of what I had done settle deep in my chest. I had wanted revenge. Now, I had started a war. I barely slept that night. The weight of what I had done pressed down on me, suffocating, relentless. By morning, the world had changed. The headlines were everywhere. Corporate scandal exposed, hidden offshore accounts and financial misconduct. Olivia's empire was crumbling in real time, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't the one on the defensive. Daniel called me as soon as the news broke. His voice was shaky, a mix of relief and fear. It's working. People are turning against her. Investors are panicking. I sat on the edge of my motel bed, scrolling through article after article, watching Olivia's name trend for all the wrong reasons. She won't go down quietly. No, she won't, he paused. She's going to come after you, hard. And she did. By noon, my name was back in the spotlight. A smear campaign had begun, painting me as a manipulative, gold-digging homewrecker who had set Daniel up from the start. Anonymous sources, undoubtedly Olivia's people, fed the media damning stories. She seduced a married man, then blackmailed his wife. A calculated affair meant to destroy a powerful woman. The backlash was immediate. Hate messages flooded my inbox. My motel room phone rang endlessly with threats. I wasn't just fighting Olivia anymore, I was fighting an entire narrative she had spun around me. By the time the sun set, Daniel was knocking at my door. I let him in, locking it behind us. His face was pale, his eyes tired. She's making calls, pulling every favor she has left. She wants you ruined, and she doesn't care how dirty she plays. I nodded, already expecting this. She's desperate, that means she's losing. He sat down, rubbing his temples. We need a way out, a final move, something that ends this before she buries us both. I pulled out my laptop, my mind racing. There's still one thing we haven't used. Daniel looked up. What? I turned the screen toward him, showing a document I had been keeping as my last resort. Emails, confidential messages Olivia had sent over the years, proof of deeper corruption, not just financial but personal. Deals that ruined careers. Blackmail. Everything she had done to keep her place at the top. This isn't just about money anymore, I said. If we release this, she won't just lose her company, she'll lose everything. Daniel exhaled, staring at the screen. This will destroy her. She was willing to destroy us first. For the first time since this all started, Daniel didn't hesitate. Then let's finish it. The moment the files went public, the world erupted. Every news outlet picked it up. Olivia's empire wasn't just crumbling, it was imploding. Former employees came forward, confirming years of workplace manipulation, corruption, and financial deceit. Government agencies launched investigations. The company's board called an emergency meeting. Olivia had spent her life controlling the narrative, but this time, she had lost control completely. Daniel and I watched it unfold from my motel room, the blue light of the TV casting shadows across his face. He wasn't celebrating. Neither was I. There was no joy in destruction, just the bitter satisfaction of knowing we had survived. Then my phone rang, unknown caller. I stared at it for a moment before answering. You think this is over? Olivia's voice was low, almost too calm. You think you've won? I exhaled slowly. You don't have any cards left to play. A bitter laugh. That's where you're wrong. You burned my world down, but I'll make sure you never get to enjoy yours. She hung up. The silence in the room was deafening. Daniel clenched his jaw. What do you think she meant? I shook my head, trying to push down the dread pooling in my stomach. She's cornered. She'll try something, but she doesn't have the power she used to. But I was wrong. The next morning, my motel door was kicked open. Police stormed inside, guns drawn. Hands up. I barely had time to process what was happening before I was thrown to the floor, cuffs snapping around my wrists. My head spun. What is this? Daniel shouted, struggling against the officers restraining him. You can't do this. What are the charges? One of the cops looked down at me, expression unreadable. Fraud, conspiracy, wiretapping, you're both under arrest. My blood ran cold. Olivia's final move. She had set us up. As they dragged me out of the room, flashing cameras and reporters swarmed the parking lot. My face was plastered across every screen, headlines already condemning me before I even had a chance to speak. Former employee behind Olivia Harding's scandal, arrested for corporate espionage. I turned my head just in time to see Olivia standing near the crowd, watching it all unfold with a satisfied smirk. She had lost everything, but she had made sure I lost too. And just like that, the war wasn't over. It had only just begun. Jail was worse than I imagined. Cold concrete walls, fluorescent lights that never turned off, and the suffocating feeling of being trapped. The media had painted me as the mastermind behind Olivia's downfall, and the justice system seemed eager to make an example of me. Daniel and I were held separately, denied bail, and left to rot while Olivia moved freely outside, untouchable. Days blurred together. My lawyer tried to assure me that the evidence against me was weak, that Olivia had overplayed her hand, but I wasn't naive. Olivia didn't make mistakes. Every move she made was calculated. And yet, despite everything, I refused to believe this was how it would end. Then, after a week, something changed. My lawyer arrived looking far too smug for someone defending a woman whose face had been splashed across headlines as a criminal. He dropped a file on the table between us and leaned in. "You're not the only one who kept receipts." I opened the file and felt my breath catch. Documents, phone records, messages, evidence that Olivia had orchestrated everything, from the setup to the false charges against me. It was all there, proof of her final desperate attempt to destroy me. "Where did this come from?" I whispered. "Let's just say Olivia made a few enemies along the way," he said with a smirk. "People who want to see her burn just as much as you do." Hope flickered in my chest, but I forced myself to stay cautious. "Is it enough?" "It's more than enough. The DA's office is looking at this now. If they bite, Olivia won't just lose. She'll go down harder than either of us could have imagined." The trial that Olivia had so carefully crafted to destroy me turned against her overnight. The new evidence was damning. The prosecutors had no choice but to drop the case against me and Daniel, while Olivia suddenly found herself on the other side of the courtroom. Fraud, perjury, conspiracy. The same weapons she had used against me had become the noose tightening around her neck. The day I walked free, the cameras were still there, but this time they weren't for me. They were for Olivia, whose empire had crumbled beneath her feet. As she was led away in cuffs, our eyes met one last time. There was no smirk, no satisfaction, just pure, seething hatred. Daniel was waiting for me outside. He looked exhausted but relieved. "It's over." I took a deep breath, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. "Yeah, it is." But as I stepped out into the sunlight for the first time in weeks, I knew one thing for certain. I would never make the mistake of underestimating anyone ever again. Thank you for watching the video. If you want to hear more stories, subscribe to the channel and like the video. Videos are released every day. Good luck to everyone.